All right, here we are with the lovely Mark Andreas, and this is Krish here from NLPindia.com. Connirae, welcome to today's interview.
Thank you so much for spending a few minutes talking together.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, Connirae, this interview precedes the fact that Mark Andreas is visiting India in November and December to bring the core transformation training to India for the first time. So what are your thoughts and feelings about that?
Oh, Krish, I am so happy. It warms my heart to have Mark coming to India. And my hope is that Mark coming there is a help and impetus for core transformation becoming much more available and getting for people to learn about it and to be interested in it and get access to the benefits from it.
I'm glad you said that, Connirae. I think to the best of my knowledge, it was Father Dick McHugh who was offering core transformation in India for the longest period. And some of the students who had learned from him probably went on to use it. But I believe there has been nobody who's been trained from you or certified from you who has offered core transformation in India so far. Is my understanding correct?
That's an interesting question. We don't do a lot of certifying. And so, yes, Dick McHugh was teaching in India, and we love Dick McHugh. He's a wonderful being, and well, I guess he's officially passed on now, although I think his spirit lives with us. You know, he's that kind of being. Lots of people feel still his presence, his talents. So I was very happy to have Dick teaching in India.
Sure.
Yes.
So how did the creation of core transformation take place? Can you briefly tell us the story?
Yes, I'd be happy to. This came out of a time in my life when I was a little bit exasperated that I was using NLP, I was trying everything and the state-of-the-art change work methods, and things worked for other people but didn't really work for me. So that's where it started. And I gave myself the challenge that I wanted to work only with people who had tried everything on their life's biggest issue and nothing had worked. And that my promise to them was only, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's nothing that I know how to do. And so we'll both sit down together, we'll explore, we don't know what's going to happen, and you can go home when you have what you want. When your problem is resolved, you can go home then. And so I thought that would help me discover some kind of method that would go farther and go deeper. And that's what happened. So I sat down with the first person, and within 20 minutes, what's now core transformation started coming out. And it almost felt like it just was given to me in a certain sense. I don't know. It came out almost fully formed that first time. And it was a path. It was an interesting discovery because I could see we were accessing a very strong state that he experienced as quite profound, and I could recognize in his demeanor something significant had happened. And I didn't know, though, was this unique to this person or was it possible for other people to have the same experience? So then I used the same line of questioning with the next people, and the same thing happened for them. And that's where core transformation was born.
So I'm curious, Connirae, did you experience a core state first, or was it something that you supported a client to go through and then later you got to experience that yourself? How was it?
It was the second. I was not first. I was always a difficult client. And this is partly why I made this challenge to work with other people, because I knew I would have more chance of success with them than with me. so I did it with them, and they had their core states, strong core states. And then I tried it with myself. I thought, okay, it's working for all these people. Surely there's a chance it will work for me too. And I did start experiencing it myself too then. And that's the goal in the training. So when Mark is there and and teaching the trainings in India, the focus will be on teaching it so that after the workshop, people have a resource that they can continue using themselves. And they'll get really detailed, really good handouts and guides that people can use as a reminder at first. And then often once it becomes familiar, it becomes something people can use even without the notes.
I have asked this question of Mark earlier, and I would like to ask this question to you again. Why did you include aligned perceptual positions as an exercise in your core transformation training?
Yes, good question. Because it is quite different. In some ways, it's almost opposite, and yet what I recall is at an early training, one of the participants who was a longtime meditation student, I think he was from the West, but he'd been to India, studied in ashrams and so on. He was a very dedicated spiritual student. And he said to me about the aligning perceptual positions, you know, this is what meditation is really all about. I was able to go very quickly into a state that I go into through meditation. So aligning perceptual positions works very differently than core transformation. Part of the reason it's in the same seminar is honestly a historical artifact that I developed it at about the same time. So it's like, okay, here's two new methods that are both very powerful. I'm doing a training and I include them both. Core transformation works through states and very quickly takes us to profound states. Aligning perceptual positions is a way of very directly clearing our senses, and it works in a much more specific and precise way. You could almost think of it as analytical, although it's not mental, it's based on experience. So they often resonate more strongly with different types of people at the first.
Well, I was introduced to it very, very recently when I purchased the core transformation program. So prior to that, I was not even aware of the aligning perceptual positions. I was aware of perceptual position, but not the exercises aligning perceptual positions. So I want to inform, yeah.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. I think most people in the NLP field have never really heard of aligning perceptual positions. And it takes perceptual positions to an entirely different level. Perceptual positions itself is useful, very useful. But what you discover in the training is that when we do this perceptual positions exercise, most of us aren't doing it anywhere as close to its full value because of our sensory systems are not aligned. So this is a process, and Mark will guide everyone through it in the training, where we end up getting so much more out of perceptual positions exercises and also some of the other exercises in NLP.
Great. So Connirae, could you tell us how you see core transformation and spirituality? How do you see the two of them together?
Well, at the first, I was not thinking of core transformation as a spiritual exercise or a spiritual process at all. My intention, like I mentioned, was I was attempting to find a method that would be more powerful, that would somehow work with the issues that, for those of us who'd tried everything and nothing worked yet, I wanted something that went farther and deeper. So that's what I had. And I myself didn't think of it as a spiritual process at the beginning. I didn't categorize it. It was just, this is working. You know, this is really helping people. And then almost from the beginning, though, some of my clients were saying, they would tell me almost like they were telling me a secret, Connirae, are you aware this is a really spiritual process? You know, because in NLP at that time, it was not thought of as spiritual, I think. And so it was like, we're telling a secret here, but you should know, Connirae, this is really spiritual. And so in my mind, I thought, fine, however you want to think about it is totally fine with me. And yet I myself was not thinking of it that way. And then as time went on and my own experience of the process became more stronger, more significant, I started experiencing states that I could not hardly define as anything but spiritual. So I started thinking, okay, now I understand what my clients have been telling me. So once again, I was not the first to get that connection. It was my clients that I was guiding. But they were going into states of oneness, and, you know, they would call it oneness or this deep peace. And I could see how profound it was, but it didn't really occur to me that it was the same thing that spiritual teachers also are speaking of. What's unique about core transformation is that it's not about just accessing these spiritual states, that through the process, these states transform our day-to-day living. So it's not that we meditate, we go off into this realm where everything is nice and we can relax. It's that we're transforming our being in such a way that we start living life differently and feeling a more ease and peace as we live our life. In spiritual traditions, there's been a thinking, or this thread of this idea that there's this deep longing and this deep searching within each of us for something that's beyond ourselves, that goes beyond ourselves. And with core transformation, there's a very precise line of questioning that in a specific way takes us to that. It helps us access that in a reliable and dependable way. Now, people can define it. I still think it's up to each person. You can call it spiritual, you can call it not spiritual. It works equally well whether people call it spiritual or not spiritual. And, you know, my husband considers himself an atheist, and it had some profound impacts for him. One of the shifts for him, among other things, he told me this years later. He said, you know, it was after core transformation that I lost my fear of death. And I said, really? Oh, that's interesting. He hadn't been working with that, but it was one of the changes that happened for him, just as a side effect, you know. So it doesn't matter how a person thinks about it, but to me, it makes sense that it fits with what spiritual traditions are also talking about and describing in human experience, this deep longing, and this helps us access it in a more precise and reliable way.
How do you see your son as a human being and as a core transformation trainer? Can you please speak on that?
Sure, yes. Well, you know, I appreciate Mark's attitude about it, and that I think he has a humility that also serves him as a trainer. I think Mark has been a natural teacher since childhood. It's a part of who he is as a person, and I am just really honored in a way that he is choosing to teach core transformation as much as he is, because I think he is a natural teacher. He's good at, and that means a natural teacher is not so much somebody, in my view, who shines the light on themselves and makes it all about me, you know. A natural teacher is someone who can shine the light on everyone in the room and see the light that's already there for everyone, and more help each person become empowered. And I think Mark is that kind of a teacher. He's collaborative, he works with people. He also has, some of the things people appreciate about him is that they feel at ease with him. He has a natural sense of humor that people enjoy. And he's very perceptive. He's very intuitive, perceptive, and sharp. The other thing that I appreciate about him carrying this work forward is his background. He had, before he started teaching core transformation, he coordinated and coached for, I think it was 6 trainings, core transformation trainings with Tamara, who has taught it for decades, and she and I worked really closely on the process. So she lives, breathes, you know, core transformation. And so Mark's in-depth mentoring with her was the beginning of his depth of skill with it. So it's, in addition to his being a good teacher of anything, he has a skill with this set of methods in particular because of his extensive work with Tamara over time. And of course, then he was around me some too. But in terms of being in the training room, he got his experience primarily with Tamara, which was very, very useful. Not very many people, if anyone, has been through that much training background before they started teaching. And it matters. It means that there's pretty much nothing he hasn't already experienced in the training room, and have this intuitive sense of how to work with it. I find that all the good trainers have had, perhaps this is too big of a generalization, we should say most of the good, almost all, the good trainers, the really good trainers, have this in-depth background, more than one training with a really good trainer, coach, and mentor. So Mark has that, plus his, and so I'm pleased. But yes, he doesn't see himself as, oh, now I'm just going to take the legacy of my parents. I think he's very aware of his own uniqueness as a human being and as a trainer, and so he does things in his own way too. But I appreciate that I don't think Mark does things in his own way because he needs to prove that it's him. You know, sometimes this is something that I think we all need to work with when we're trainers. Perhaps this goes more into depth than we need on this interview, but I think for potential trainers, it's a thing that I work with in myself. I encourage all trainers to work with. It's like our attachments as trainers. And do we have a need to be perceived in a certain way, or to do things in a certain way? And the more we can dissolve and work with these roles and identifications, the more we can just be present for the people that are with us and for what they need, and we can be of service.
Yeah, Connirae, my last question to you for the interview, as the founder or discoverer, or however you want to call it, of core transformation, what is your vision for core transformation? What would you like to have happen with this method? What's your vision for this?
Well, my vision for core transformation, along with the wholeness work, which is the other companion method to core transformation, my own personal experience is that core transformation and wholeness work together can do a lot for the human community. That can do a lot for us as individuals, and can do a lot for us as a species, as people who live together, to make our individual lives more positive, more meaningful, and our collective lives more smooth and simpatico, harmonious. So my own experience is these methods go to a level of change and transformation that makes it more reliable, more precise, more dependable, and deeper. So I think core transformation is really the best place for people to start on this deep transformation process, people who are interested in it. And then I think wholeness work is a good companion method. And for me now, that's the primary thing that works in my own practice. And so my hope is, the general hope is that it can become available, this work can become available to more and more people in a quality way. Both of those things, because I know I've seen little offshoots of core transformation. Somebody, I'm not naming names here either, but has a summary of it in their book, and I'm going, oh my goodness, this is not really core transformation, you know. And if people do it based on that, they won't have access to the power of it. So my hope is that this work can go forward with people who have taken the time to get the depth of training, to offer it in a full, rich, quality way for people, so that the full benefit is there. So my hope to make it available, I think that takes several things. The books need to be available, and that's already happening. Then my hope is that there are coaches and trainers who, in greater numbers, can make this available to everyone who's interested.
Thank you very much, Connirae. I really appreciate for the time that you've given for us for the interview, and we really look forward to Mark coming and teaching core transformation in India.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting him there. And, you know, I feel this warmth in my heart for you all as you go forward with these trainings. And I'm sure it will be a wonderful experience. I look forward to hearing back from Mark and from you all. Yeah, it's just a lovely opportunity for us to connect more deeply with India. May I say more one thing? You know,
Sure.
you were asking about the connection with spirituality and so on, and I've because of this work with core transformation and wholeness, my own personal background has been through NLP and personal growth, but these trainings, through seeking what really works at a deep level for people, have taken me more into interest in exploring spirituality too, and that's led me to India. so a number of teachers that are from your country, I'm a novice in terms of my training there, but I have enjoyed and appreciated the connections that I have with a number of teachers from India also. So now I enjoy perhaps giving something back to India, if it can be that way. It's this mutual reciprocity that we give to each other.